Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
So, today's topic might surprise you.
Oh, what is it?
The Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal.
Yeah, in the 2020s, right?
I know, it sounds like a history lesson.
But trust me, it's not. It's actually super relevant right now because of, well,
Yeah, former President Trump.
exactly.
hmm
Remember those statements he made about Panama Canal
Oh,
fee?
yeah, he really went off on Truth Social about that.
And well, the internet kind of exploded.
Definitely got people talking.
So we're diving into that whole online discussion.
That's always fun.
Plus, we'll bring in some news articles and historical context.
Gotta have the background, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Because this is about way more than just a canal, right?
It is. We're talking international relations, big economic stuff, even the future of the canal itself with, climate change and all that.
A lot to unpack. Okay, so first, what exactly did Trump say?
Well, he didn't hold back, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Went on Truth Social and basically accused Panama of, ripping off the U.S.
Price gouging, basically.
Yeah, with what he called ridiculous canal fees.
Hmm.
He even threatened to, demand the canal back if they didn't lower the fees.
Wow.
And called that 1979 treaty, the one that gave Panama control, a foolish decision.
Like he's trying to rewrite history, huh?
Kind of feels that way.
But okay, to really understand all that, we got to go back a bit,
Right,
right?
definitely. The Panama Canal and the U.S., that goes way back, over a century.
Oh, yeah, I remember learning about this.
Just the scale of building it, that was huge. Started under Teddy Roosevelt, early 1900s. It was a big deal.
American engineering at its finest.
Totally. And the U.S. ran it for decades, saw it as, strategically crucial.
For both the economy and the military, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, when Trump says stuff like that, people kind of freak out. Historically speaking, it's a sensitive topic.
Yeah, and the internet had a field day. That Reddit thread we found is full of jokes about, renaming it the Trump Canal.
President Musk even made an appearance. The internet loves their memes.
Oh, yeah, those are always a good time. Yeah. But they do kind of show, I don't know, maybe some skepticism about how much Trump really gets about international relations.
Yeah, and the whole, legal side of things, too.
Right. There were a lot of comparisons to Putin in Ukraine, too.
Like a sense of, ugh, not this again,
Yeah.
Tired of the bullying tactics.
Definitely. But there was also a lot of support for Panama in that thread.
People were like, stand up to him, don't back down.
Yeah. Some even suggested, banning U.S. ships or raising fees just for them.
Which is interesting because Panama, they do have the power now. The 1979 treaty wasn't just giving it away. It was about recognizing their sovereignty.
They've got leverage.
Big time.
Yeah.
They could totally use that, though, globally. That would have huge consequences.
A powerful card to play, but with risks.
Exactly. And speaking of things with consequences, we got to talk about climate change.
Oh, right. That keeps coming up.
Because it's a major factor here. I saw a comment mentioning rising fees being linked to, climate change and water scarcity.
Is that legit or just an excuse?
Oh, it's legit. The canal needs a ton of water to work. And climate change is messing with rainfall patterns.
Wait, explain that. How does water even factor into the canal?
Oh, right. So ships don't just sail straight through. It's not sea level the whole way. They have to go through these locks.
Oh,
right?
like steps.
Yeah, giant steps. And to move ships up or down, they flood these chambers with water. Millions of gallons of it.
So no rain, no canal.
Pretty much. Less rain means delays. Ships can't carry as much. They might even have to go a different route.
All that costs money.
Tons of it. So yeah, those rising fees, climate change is a big part of that.
So it's not just Panama trying to make a buck. They've got real problems because of the environment.
Absolutely. It brings up a whole new question. Beyond the politics, can the Panama Canal even survive with climate change getting worse?
So we started with Trump's hot takes, and now we're pondering the fate of global trade.
That's how these deep dives go. Pull on one thread and bam, a whole tapestry unravels. And it's not just the locks either, the coasts, all that infrastructure.
Right.
Sea levels rising, that's a huge threat. We're talking potential floods, erosion, damage to the locks and dams, everything.
Sounds like they're fighting a losing battle.
Yes.
So are they doing anything about it? Any solutions?
There are a few things they're trying. One is better water management, new reservoirs, water recycling, that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. Conserve what they've got.
Exactly. They're also looking into drought-resistant crops, to help stabilize the watershed around the canal.
Huh. So it's not just engineering, it's environmental science too.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then there are the more extreme ideas widening the canal, making it deeper so bigger ships can fit.
Okay, that sounds like a huge project.
It is, or even like building a whole new set of locks at sea level so they wouldn't need so much water.
Whoa, that's a lot. Wouldn't that be crazy expensive?
Yeah, it would be a massive undertaking, financially, logistically, everything. But when you think about it, if the canal shuts down, that's a disaster for global trade.
So maybe those costs aren't so bad compared to, like, the whole thing going kaput.
Right. It makes you think, at what point does doing nothing become more expensive than fixing it?
Good point.
And it's not just about money either. Remember, the Panama Canal isn't just some, like, engineering project. For Panama, it's a symbol, of national pride. And globally, it's a big deal, like power dynamics and all that.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about the money.
Exactly. Which brings us back to those Reddit comments. Remember how some people were all about Panama giving the U.S. a hard time?
Oh, yeah, stand up to the bully.
Do you think that shows, like, a bigger change? How people see power in the world, not just the U.S. calling all the shots anymore.
Interesting. I mean, there's definitely more nationalism these days, countries wanting to control their own resources.
And Panama, they got a pretty big resource right there.
But wouldn't that, like, hurt them too? I mean, if they really got tough with the U.S., banned ships, raised fees like crazy.
It's tricky. They need that revenue, and a lot of it comes from the U.S., but they also can't just let themselves get pushed around.
So it's not a simple good guy, bad guy situation.
Nope. And online, it's easy to forget that. Everyone wants to pick a side, but the reality is way more complicated.
Like, solving these big problems, global problems, you need to be able to talk, work together, understand all the different angles.
Exactly. Economic stuff, environmental stuff, political stuff, it's all connected.
Listening to all this, I'm reminded of that saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Uh-huh. Isn't that the truth? We keep digging into this topic, and it just keeps getting deeper.
But that's kind of the fun part, right? Learning more, seeing how everything fits together.
Oh, yeah. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, but instead of crying, you get, like, a better understanding of the world.
Haha. Nice analogy. Speaking of learning more, there was one comment that really made me think. It said, like, besides the Navy, not many American ships even use the Panama Canal anymore.
Interesting.
So if that's true, why was Trump making such a big deal about the fees?
That is a good question. It makes you wonder, right? What's the real motivation here? Maybe it's not really about the canal itself, but more about who he's trying to appeal to, what story he's trying to tell.
Like playing to a certain crowd, pushing an agenda.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to, be critical, think for yourself, especially these days.
Don't just take things at face value.
Right. You got to dig deeper, look at things from different angles, and then, decide what you think.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Absolutely. And with the Panama Canal, man, there's so much going on. History, politics, economics, the environment, it's all tangled up together.
It's like a microcosm of, like, all the big problems in the world today.
Totally. Here we have this vital waterway, essential for global trade, but it's under threat from climate change and caught up in political games. It makes you ask, whose responsibility is it to, make sure the canal survives?
That's a heavy question, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, definitely not. We'll come back to that in a bit. But first, there's another thing we need to talk about. Remember how some people said Panama could use the canal as leverage? Like a bargaining chip?
Oh, right. You want to play games, we'll show you games.
Well, that idea, it's interesting, but it could also be really dangerous. Think about the consequences.
Yeah, things could get messy fast.
Like, what if they just banned U.S. ships? Boom, instant chaos. Supply chains disrupted. International relations going haywire. Maybe even economic problems.
No one wants that.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even if something seems small, it can have huge effects all over the world.
Exactly. So, yeah, maybe we should leave the whole closing the canal thing to the Reddit folks. It's not that simple.
But Panama, they do have the power, right? They can decide what fees to charge, how to manage the canal. It's their country.
Exactly. They can't just be ignored. They have rights. And they're not afraid to stand up for themselves.
Okay, I'm seeing the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
It's not just about Trump and his tweets. Panama is a real player in this, with their own goals and interests.
Absolutely. That's something important to keep in mind.
So what does all this mean for the future of the Panama Canal? And for us, the people who depend on it, even if we don't realize it.
Those are the big questions, right? And we're going to keep digging into them. But don't forget about climate change. That's a whole other layer of complexity we haven't fully unpacked yet.
Okay, so, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have started with Trump, but then, man, we went deep. History, power struggles, climate change, the whole shebang.
And those Reddit comments, I mean, some of them were hilarious, but also, like, really insightful.
They always bring a different perspective, you know? People from all over the world chiming in.
It's been quite a journey. So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners? What can they do with all this information?
Well, it's not about having all the answers, right? It's about understanding how complex this all is and being able to talk about it, intelligently.
So no easy solutions, huh?
Not really, no. But that's what makes these deep dives so interesting, I think. We don't just give you the answers, we give you the tools to figure things out for yourself.
And in this case, the issue, it goes way beyond Panama and the U.S. It's about global trade, the
Yes,
whole
it is.
system, and how do we keep something like the canal working in a world that's, constantly changing.
Exactly. The Panama Canal, it's like a reminder that we're all connected, right? What happens in one place affects everyone else, economies, the environment, everything.
Sounds like a call to action, not just for, like, world leaders, but for everyone.
It is. We can't just sit back and watch. We have to stay informed, be critical of the information we see, and talk to each other about these issues.
And maybe, don't jump to conclusions just because someone with a big platform said something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, a little healthy skepticism never hurts. Look at things from different angles, then decide what you think.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with a final question, something to think about.
All right, hit me.
Given how important the Panama Canal is and how climate change could, like, really mess things up, who should be responsible for its future?
Ooh, that's a good one. And what can we do to make sure it keeps working, but also, respect Panama's right to make their own decisions?
It's a lot to think about, but that's what makes these deep dives so interesting, right?
Yeah.
We're learning, we're engaging with these big issues that affect us all.
And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Keep thinking, keep learning, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.